I'm Emma Johnson, 32, and my whole life was geared towards leading our family's marketing firm. My parents built Johnson Marketing Consultants from scratch, and I poured everything into its success. Then, out of nowhere, they announced my younger sister Madison would be CEO instead of me. I walked away from the business I helped build. They ended up losing $1 million deal I'd been working on for years. If you've ever felt overlooked by the very people who should believe in you most, stick around. Before we dive deeper, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to walk away to truly find your worth. Growing up in Chicago, Johnson Marketing Consultants was always the center of our universe. My parents, Robert and Catherine, started it the year before I was born. I practically grew up in my dad's office, coloring on old marketing briefs while he handled calls. Our family business wasn't just a company. It was like another sibling, always demanding attention. Madison arrived 2 years after me, and even as kids, our differences were obvious. I was the serious one, obsessed with numbers and strategy games. By age 10, I was devouring business magazines and quizzing my dad about client accounts. Madison was the free spirit drawn to art and fashion. She'd spend hours designing clothes for her dolls while I was busy creating mock ad campaigns for my stuffed animals. Emma has the Johnson business sense, my dad would proudly tell clients whenever I'd make a smart comment about their marketing. I thrived on that praise, letting it shape my identity. Meanwhile, my mom would show off Madison's art projects, gushing over her creativity and people skills. We both got affirmation, but looking back, I can see the subtle steering happening. In high school, while other kids were at the mall, I was interning at our family business every summer. I organized files, sat in on client meetings, and even contributed ideas that sometimes made it into real campaigns. Madison, on the other hand, spent her summers at art camps and later worked retail at cool boutiques. Our parents never pushed her to join the business the way they did me. Yet they'd always say things like, "When you girls run the company someday," assuming we shared the same dream. I built my entire education around preparing to lead Johnson Marketing. I chose Northwestern University specifically for its top-notch marketing program, graduating with honors. Then I earned my MBA from Columbia, specializing in digital marketing strategies and business development. During those 6 years, I also interned at major marketing firms in New York, building connections and learning systems that could benefit our family business. Madison's path was different. She started in fashion design but switched to business administration in her sophomore year. She graduated from the University of Illinois with a decent but not outstanding record. While I was finishing my MBA, she worked at a few startups in Chicago. She gained some experience, but nothing compared to my deliberate career trajectory. When I returned to Chicago after my MBA, I immediately joined the family business full-time. My parents gave me a respectable but middle management position as a marketing strategist. I'd hoped for something more senior given my qualifications, but I knew I had to prove myself in the family context. For the next 2 years, I worked non-stop to modernize our operations. I brought in digital analytics, revamped our client acquisition strategy, and landed 3 major accounts that boosted our annual revenue by 32%. My parents were impressed, but not surprised. This was what they'd raised me to do. Madison joined the company a year after me, starting in client relations, a role that played to her interpersonal strengths. To everyone's surprise, including mine, she embraced the business world with unexpected enthusiasm. The charisma that made her popular in school translated perfectly to client meetings. Where I excelled at strategy and execution, Madison shined in presentations and networking. For a while, it seemed perfect. We complemented each other, and the business grew faster than ever. Clients loved my detailed work and Madison's personable approach. Our parents beamed with pride, having both daughters in the company, though. I couldn't help noticing they often credited Madison for new accounts I had largely secured. "You two are the future of this company," my father would toast at our quarterly success dinners. But I was the one staying until midnight finalizing proposals, sacrificing weekends to perfect pitch decks, the one who had dedicated my entire life to this moment. I believed the CEO position would ultimately be mine, with Madison perhaps leading client relations or creative services. After all, I had the experience, the education, and the track record. It seemed like the natural order of things. How wrong I was. As the months turned into years, I kept solidifying my position at Johnson Marketing Consultants. My innovative strategies transformed how we approached client campaigns, bringing us into the digital age when many similar-sized agencies were still stuck in old methods. I developed our own analytics dashboard, giving clients real-time insights into campaign performance, a huge differentiator. One of my proudest achievements was the Riverstone Hotels campaign. This regional hotel chain was losing ground to Airbnb and needed a complete brand overhaul. I designed a multi-platform strategy highlighting their local expertise and authentic experiences, even including user-generated content from satisfied guests. The campaign boosted their bookings by 47% in just 6 months, leading to a 3-year contract extension worth $500,000 annually. Success stories like this became my signature. I wasn't just implementing tactics. I was developing a unique methodology that would later become the core of my own business. Clients started specifically asking for me, which got mixed reactions. From my parents. They were proud, sure, but I sometimes saw them redirecting clients to work with our team rather than just me. My dedication came at a cost. While Madison enjoyed an active social life, dating regularly and maintaining close friendships, I poured myself into the business. Weekends were for catching up on industry trends or prepping for Monday meetings. Vacations were rare, and even then, I'd still check emails and take client calls. My last relationship ended when Tyler, my boyfriend of 2 years, said he felt like he was dating Johnson Marketing, with Emma as its spokesperson. It hurt, but I understood. The business was my priority. When Madison completed her MBA part-time while working at the company, our parents threw her a lavish graduation party. Now both our girls have the credentials to lead, my mother proudly announced. I smiled through gritted teeth, knowing that paper credentials didn't equal the years of hands-on experience and proven results I had delivered. The shifting dynamics became clearer when my parents started assigning Madison to high-profile new client pitches, despite my superior track record in closing deals. Madison has a way with people, my father explained when I questioned this decision. Clients respond to her energy. When I pointed out my higher conversion rate, he dismissed it. Numbers aren't everything in this business, Emma. Despite these frustrations, I stayed committed. My biggest project was building a relationship with Harper Industries, a fast-growing tech company that needed comprehensive marketing services as they expanded nationally. For 2 years, I nurtured this connection, regularly taking their CMO, Rachel, to lunch, sending their team relevant industry insights, and occasionally offering free consultations on smaller projects to show our value. This careful relationship building was about to pay off. Rachel had confidentially shared that Harper planned to consolidate all their marketing with a single agency, a contract worth at least $1 million annually for a minimum 3-year term. They were impressed with my strategic approach and innovative ideas. And while they were still evaluating other agencies, Rachel made it clear we were the front runner. This could transform our business, I told my parents, presenting the detailed brief I'd prepared for the final pitch meeting. Harper Industries could be our biggest client ever, and they specifically appreciate our data-driven approach. I'd already put together a dedicated team and developed preliminary campaign concepts based on my deep knowledge of their business. My father nodded appreciatively as he reviewed my presentation. This is impressive work, Emma. Let's have Madison take a look at this too and get her input before the final pitch. I felt a familiar pang of irritation but pushed it aside. Sure, her perspective could be valuable, but I reminded them, remember, I've been working with Rachel and her team for 2 years. I understand their needs and vision intimately. Of course, my mother interjected, but Madison brings a fresh perspective that clients find engaging. We should leverage both your strengths. What started as getting Madison's input quickly turned into my parents suggesting she lead the pitch presentation, with me providing the strategic details. When I objected. My father's response was telling. Emma, you're too emotionally invested in this account. Madison can present more objectively. Too emotionally invested. The phrase rattled around in my head for days. Was dedication to client success now a liability? I'd spent countless hours learning everything about Harper Industries, from their company culture to their 5-year expansion plans. Of course I was invested. Meanwhile, I was developing a comprehensive expansion strategy for Johnson Marketing itself. With the anticipated Harper Industries contract, we'd have the financial stability to open a second office in Denver, tapping into that growing tech market. I'd researched office spaces, projected hiring needs, and created a detailed 3-year growth plan. This wasn't just about growing our client list. It was about evolving the entire business for long-term success. When I presented this vision to my parents, they seemed impressed but non-committal. Let's secure Harper Industries first before making any big moves, my father said prudently. I agreed with the practical approach, not knowing the biggest shock was yet to come. The Harper Industries pitch was set for the following month. Everything was falling into place for both the pitch and what I assumed would be my eventual promotion to a more senior leadership role. After all, bringing in $1 million client while also developing the company's expansion strategy surely proved I was ready to lead. I remember telling my friend Amanda during one of our rare Friday night dinners, I think this is finally it. After the Harper deal closes, they'll have to admit I'm ready to take over when they retire. They'd be crazy not to, she agreed, raising her glass in a toast to the future CEO of Johnson Marketing. If only she knew how wrong we both were. 3 weeks before the Harper Industries pitch, my parents invited Madison and me to dinner at Gibson's, the fancy steakhouse they saved for special occasions. The invitation came with unusual formality. My father called instead of texting, his voice carrying a weight that made my stomach clench. We have something important to discuss with both of you, he said. It's about the future of the company. I spent the day before dinner reviewing our company financials and updating my strategic growth plan. If this was the succession discussion I'd been expecting, I wanted to be completely prepared to accept the leadership role I'd worked towards my entire life. Gibson's was busy that Thursday evening, but our table was ready in the private dining section when we arrived. My mother had already ordered champagne, which confirmed this wasn't an ordinary family dinner. Madison arrived last, apologizing for traffic and looking slightly flustered, which would later make sense. After the usual small talk and ordering, my father cleared his throat and reached for my mother's hand. As you girls know, your mother and I have been discussing our retirement plans. Johnson Marketing has been our life's work, but we're ready to start stepping back and enjoying more time together. My heart raced. This was it. The moment I'd been preparing for since childhood. We've thought long and hard about the future leadership of the company. My mother continued, her eyes moving between Madison and me. Both of you have contributed so much in different but valuable ways. I nodded, keeping a composed smile, while mentally reviewing the transition timeline I'd drafted. 3 months of overlapping leadership would be ideal, with my parents gradually reducing their involvement while I put my vision for the company's growth into action. My father raised his glass. We'd like to toast to the future of Johnson Marketing Consultants and to our new Chief Executive Officer. The pause lasted only seconds, but it felt eternal. Madison. The champagne turned bitter in my mouth. I must have misheard. Madison will be taking over as CEO effective next quarter, my mother elaborated, beaming at my sister. Emma, we'd like you to continue heading up strategy as our Chief Strategy Officer, reporting to Madison. Madison looked both thrilled and uncomfortable, avoiding my eyes as our parents continued outlining their vision for the transition. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. I smiled mechanically, nodded at the right times, and even managed to congratulate my sister when directly prompted. Inside, I was imploding. The drive home was a haze of disbelief and hurt. I kept replaying my father's words, searching for logic in a decision that seemed to defy it. Madison had been with the company for 4 years compared to my 5, had less relevant experience before joining, and hadn't independently spearheaded any major accounts. By every objective measure, education, experience, client acquisition, revenue generation, I had proven myself more qualified. Sleep avoided me that night. I tossed in bed, mentally cataloging my contributions to the company versus Madison's, searching for what I'd missed. By morning, hurt had hardened into a determination to understand their reasoning. I requested a private meeting with my parents the following day. They agreed, looking slightly uneasy as I entered my father's office. I need to understand. I began working to keep my voice steady. What factors led to choosing Madison over me for the CEO position? My parents exchanged a glance before my father leaned forward. Emma, you're an exceptional strategist and analyst. The company wouldn't be where it is without your contributions. But, I prompted. But leadership is about more than just strategy and numbers, my mother interjected. Madison has a natural ability to inspire people, to build consensus, to represent the company in a way that attracts both clients and talent. And I don't? My father sighed. You can be intense, Emma. Brilliant, but intense. You focus so much on results that sometimes you overlook the human element. Madison balances ambition with approachability. So my dedication, my intensity, as you call it, is being held against me. The injustice burned in my chest. I've sacrificed everything for this company. That's part of what concerns us, my mother said gently. A good leader needs balance. Perspective. Madison has developed a more well-rounded approach to both business and life. The subtext was clear, my all-consuming commitment to the company. The very quality they had encouraged throughout my life was now seen as a liability rather than an asset. The conversation continued in this vein, with my parents trying to soften the blow while unintentionally twisting the knife deeper. We believe you two will make an excellent leadership team, my father concluded. Your strengths complement each other perfectly. But I wasn't interested in being the support structure for my sister's rise. And if I don't want to be CSO under Madison's leadership? Another knowing glance between my parents. We hope you'll reconsider that position, my mother said carefully. The company needs you, Emma. I left the meeting with perfect clarity about two painful truths. My parents had always envisioned Madison as the eventual leader despite my superior qualifications. And no amount of achievement on my part would have changed that predetermined outcome. That night I called Amanda in
tears.
They said I'm too intense, too focused on results, I told her between sobs. Apparently, sacrificing everything for the business makes me less qualified to run it, not more. That's absurd, she responded indignantly. They're punishing you for your dedication. What hurts most is realizing that nothing I did would have changed this outcome. They always saw Madison as the face of the company's future, regardless of my contributions. For the next week, I went through the motions at work, avoiding both Madison and my parents whenever possible. Madison tried to discuss the situation several times, sending meeting invites to talk about our future collaboration, which I systematically declined. The Harper Industries pitch was approaching, and despite my personal turmoil, I kept refining the presentation. This client represented years of relationship building, and I couldn't bring myself to abandon that effort, even as I thought about my future at the company. One evening, Madison cornered me as I was leaving the office. Emma, please. We need to talk about this, she pleaded. I know you're upset, and you have every right to be. I looked at my sister coldly. Did you know before the dinner? She hesitated just long enough to confirm my suspicion. They discussed it with me the week before, she admitted. I told them they should reconsider that you've been working toward this longer. But you accepted anyway, I interrupted. I thought we could lead together, she said weakly. Your expertise with what? Your people skills? Your fresh perspective? The bitterness I'd been suppressing erupted. You've been with the company for years, Madison. I've been preparing for this my entire life. I know, she whispered. I'm sorry it happened this way. The sincerity in her apology only made it worse. Madison wasn't a villain. She was simply the beneficiary of our parents' inexplicable preference. But knowing that didn't lessen the sting of betrayal or the fundamental unfairness of the situation. That night I made my decision. The morning after my hallway confrontation with Madison, I requested another meeting with my parents, this time with a clear purpose. They agreed to meet after the workday, perhaps hoping I'd had time to accept their decision. The conference room felt unusually cold as we gathered. I'd prepared meticulously for this conversation, just as I would for any critical business meeting. My father started with small talk about an ongoing client project, but I gently interrupted. I've been reflecting on our discussion about the leadership transition, I began, my voice calm and measured, and I have some direct questions that I need honest answers to. My parents nodded, though I noticed my mother's fingers nervously adjusting her bracelet. When did you first decide Madison would be CEO instead of me? Was this a recent decision based on our performance, or was this always the plan? The uncomfortable silence that followed was answer enough, but I waited for them to say it. My father cleared his throat. We've always seen different strengths in both of you. Madison has always had a certain presence that naturally lends itself to leadership. So this was predetermined, I stated flatly. Regardless of my accomplishments, my dedication, my results. The decision was made long before either of us joined the company officially. That's not entirely fair, Emma, my mother interjected. We've always valued your contributions tremendously. But not enough to consider me for the role I've been working toward my entire life, I countered. Let me ask something else. What specific leadership qualities does Madison possess that I lack? My parents exchanged their usual glance before my father responded. Madison builds consensus naturally. She's diplomatic in situations where you might be more direct. Clients and employees respond to her approachability. So I'm too direct, too intense, I repeated their earlier criticism. Can you point to any instance where my directness has cost us a client or damaged the business? They couldn't, of course. My directness had always been about getting results. Emma, my mother said gently, leadership isn't just about results. It's about inspiring people, creating a vision others want to follow. The Harper Industries account, I responded. That's a vision I created and nurtured over 2 years. Our potential expansion to Denver, another vision I developed. The analytics platform that sets us apart from competitors, my vision again. Those are strategic initiatives, my father conceded. And they're valuable. That's why we want you as CSO. Working under Madison, I added. Someone with less experience, less proven success, and let's be honest, less commitment to the business. My mother frowned. That's unfair too. Your sister, she's dedicated to Johnson marketing. But not at the expense of everything else, right? I pressed. Isn't that what you implied last time? That my complete dedication is somehow a liability? The conversation continued in circles. My parents unwilling to admit the fundamental unfairness of their decision, while unable to give concrete reasons beyond vague mentions of Madison's leadership qualities. Finally, I placed a folder on the table. This is my resignation, effective immediately. The shock on their faces would have been satisfying under different circumstances. Emma, you can't be serious, my father stammered. The Harper pitch is in 2 weeks. The company needs you. I've prepared comprehensive notes on the Harper account and strategy, I replied coolly. Madison's leadership qualities should be enough to close the deal. This is rash, my mother pleaded. Take some time to think about this. We can discuss adjusting roles, compensation. This isn't about money or titles, I interrupted. It's about recognition and respect for what I've contributed. It's about fairness. My father's expression hardened slightly. Life isn't always fair, Emma. In business, we sometimes have to accept decisions we don't agree with. You're right, I conceded. And my decision is to no longer work for a company that fundamentally undervalues my contributions. I won't be reporting to someone who was handed a position I earned. The meeting ended with my parents in disbelief and me with a strange sense of calm. The decision that had kept me awake for nights now felt inevitable, even right. Outside the conference room, Madison was waiting, her expression making it clear she'd heard at least part of our conversation. You're leaving? She asked, eyes wide with dismay. Emma, please don't do this. We can work together. I value your expertise more than anyone. This isn't about you personally, Madison, I said, surprised by the gentleness in my voice. This is about recognizing my own worth when others won't. The Harper account, she began. Will have to succeed or fail without me, I finished. For her, consider it your first test as CEO. Cleaning out my office was surreal. 5 years of work life fit into 3 cardboard boxes, awards for campaigns I developed, client testimonials, the leather portfolio my parents had given me when I joined the company, a gift that now felt hollow. Jessica, my assistant, who had become a friend, helped me pack while fighting back tears. What will you do now? She asked, carefully wrapping my Northwestern Alumni Award. I'm not sure yet, I admitted. But I know what I won't do. Continue to pour myself into a place that doesn't value that investment. Several other team members stopped by, expressing shock and concern about my departure. I was touched by their genuine reactions, especially from the junior staff I had mentored. Thomas, our newest analyst whom I'd personally trained, looked devastated. You taught me everything I know about digital strategy, he said. It won't be the same without you. Before leaving, I had one final stop to make. Rachel, the CMO of Harper Industries, deserved to hear about my departure directly from me rather than through a corporate email. I called her from my personal phone. You're leaving? She asked, shocked after I explained the situation. Emma, our entire team has been working with you specifically. The presentation, the strategy, that was all you. I know, and I apologize for the disruption, I said. Sincerely. The company still has talented strategists who can execute the vision we discussed. Rachel's pause spoke volumes. We selected Johnson Marketing largely because of your approach and understanding of our needs, she said carefully.
This changes
things significantly. I didn't try to persuade her either way. Professional ethics prevented me from actively sabotaging my former company, but I also wouldn't falsely sell capabilities that were walking out the door with me. As I carried my boxes to the elevator, my father intercepted me. Emma, please. Reconsider, he urged, looking genuinely distressed for the first time. We can work through this. I looked at him, the man who had taught me everything about business, only to overlook me when it mattered most. I've reconsidered my place. Here for the past 2 weeks, I told him. My decision is final. Madison appeared in the hallway, tears streaming down her face. Don't leave like this, she pleaded, not because of me. This isn't just about you, I said, softening slightly at her obvious distress. It's about recognizing when a situation can't be fixed and having the courage to start over. The elevator doors opened and I stepped in with my boxes, turning to face my family one last time as the doors closed on that chapter of my life. The first week after leaving Johnson Marketing passed in a blur of emotional extremes. I fluctuated between empowering confidence in my decision and paralyzing doubt. Who was I without the company that had defined my identity for so long? The question haunted my sleepless nights in the hotel where I temporarily relocated. Chicago suddenly felt too small, too suffocating with memories and the possibility of running into my family or former clients. After 10 days of limbo, I made another life-changing decision. I would move to Denver, the city I had researched so thoroughly, for Johnson Marketing's expansion that never happened. I found a modest one-bedroom apartment in the Reno district, a far cry from my spacious Chicago condo. The bare walls and minimal furniture reflected my stripped-down existence. Starting over at 32 wasn't part of my meticulously planned life trajectory, but there was an unexpected freedom in the blank slate before me. The first month tested my resolve daily. I would wake up reaching for a work phone that wasn't there, momentarily forgetting I no longer had client emergencies to manage or team members to direct. The silence was both terrifying and liberating. I keep waiting for the regret to hit. I confessed to Amanda during one of our daily phone calls. But mostly I feel relief mixed with this strange emptiness. The emptiness is just space for whatever comes next, she replied with characteristic wisdom. You're not defined by that company, Emma. You never were. Financially, I had enough savings to sustain me for 6 months without income, a cushion I had built planning for emergencies, never imagining this particular scenario. Still, watching my bank balance decrease without corresponding deposits. created a low-grade anxiety I couldn't shake. By the second month, I began reaching out to my professional network, not for job opportunities. The thought of working for another family business or marketing agency held no appeal. Instead, I reconnected as an independent consultant. Years of relationship building proved valuable as former industry colleagues responded warmly to my new status. Patricia, a former client who had moved to a larger company, was the first to offer me contract work. "We need someone to evaluate our current marketing strategy," she explained over coffee. "Someone who isn't afraid to be direct about what's working and what isn't. I immediately thought of you." That first project was modest in scope and compensation, but it provided something more valuable than money: validation that my skills and approach had value independent of the Johnson
Name.
I transformed Patricia's marketing department over 6 weeks, implementing systems similar to those I developed at Johnson Marketing. "You've accomplished more as one person than the agency we fired did with an entire team," Patricia marveled. During our final meeting, "Would you consider taking on another project for our events division?" Word spread quickly. Patricia recommended me to colleagues who recommended me to others. By the 4th month, I was turning down projects and carefully selecting clients whose needs aligned with my strengths and interests. Working from my apartment became impractical as I started needing meeting space for client presentations. With growing confidence, I leased a small office in a co-working space. The space wasn't impressive, just a private room with a desk, 2 client chairs, and a small conference table. But it was mine, independent of family legacy or connections. I named my new business Summit Marketing Solutions, a nod to both the Denver landscape and the peak performance I aimed to deliver. Jessica, my former assistant from Johnson Marketing, called unexpectedly during my 5th month in Denver. "I hope you don't mind me reaching out," she began hesitantly. "Things are different since you left." "Different how?" I asked, curious despite myself. "Madison is trying, but she doesn't have your strategic vision," Jessica explained. "The analytics platform you developed isn't being utilized properly. Clients are noticing the difference." I felt a complex mix of vindication and concern. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, genuinely meaning it. Despite everything, I didn't wish failure on the business my parents had built. "Actually," Jessica continued, "I was wondering if you might be hiring. I've learned so much from you, and I'd rather continue that education." The idea of having an employee hadn't occurred to me yet. My business was growing, but was it stable enough to support staff? The more I thought about it, the more Jessica's skills would perfectly complement my client work. "Let me put together an offer," I told her. "I can't match corporate benefits yet, but I can promise you'll be integral to building something new." 2 weeks later, Jessica arrived in Denver, bringing her organizational prowess and client management skills to Summit Marketing. With her handling operations and client communications, I could focus entirely on strategy and business development. "We need a proper website," Jessica announced on her 3rd day. "I've drafted content based on your methodology, and I've researched designers who specialize in marketing consultancies." Her initiative confirmed I'd made the right decision. Together, we began building Summit Marketing's identity, distinct from Johnson Marketing, but incorporating the best of what I'd learned there while shedding the limitations. By the 6-month mark, Summit Marketing Solutions had 8 regular clients, a growing reputation for data-driven strategies with measurable results, and a distinctive approach I called elevation marketing, helping clients rise above competitive noise through authentic, analytics-supported storytelling. I was working as hard as ever, but the satisfaction was incomparable. Every decision was mine, every success directly attributable to my vision and execution. The validation I'd sought from my parents came instead from clients who renewed contracts and referred colleagues. One evening, as Jessica and I worked late finalizing a presentation, she hesitated before asking, "Have you spoken to your family since leaving?" "No," I admitted. "My parents have called several times, but I'm not ready for that conversation yet." "And Madison?" I sighed. "She texts occasionally, generic things like, 'Hope you're well' or 'Thinking of you today.'" I respond similarly. "We're in a polite holding pattern." Jessica nodded thoughtfully. Thomas from the analytics team said Harper Industries canceled their contract with Johnson after the initial 3 months. Apparently, the execution didn't match what you had proposed. The news didn't surprise me, but it didn't bring the satisfaction I might have expected either.
That's business, I said simply. Results matter.
What I didn't share with Jessica was how occasionally, in quiet moments, I wondered if walking away had been too extreme. Not because I questioned my worth or the injustice of the situation, but because family bonds, however strained, remained part of my identity too. Those reflections were interrupted by news that would change everything again. An industry publication ran a feature on marketing innovators reshaping client expectations, with Summit Marketing Solutions highlighted for our elevation marketing approach. The publicity brought a flood of inquiries, including one from Westfield Corporation, a national commercial real estate developer with marketing needs across multiple platforms. They want a complete marketing overhaul, Jessica reported excitedly. Digital, traditional, internal communications, everything. The initial contract would be $2 million over 3 years. $2 million, double what the Harper Industries contract would have been. The symmetry wasn't lost on me, nor was the irony that I might never have pursued this independent path if I'd been named CEO of Johnson Marketing. As Summit Marketing continued growing, I received occasional updates about my former company through industry contacts. Johnson Marketing was struggling to maintain its client base, particularly after losing Harper Industries. The innovative edge I had brought was noticeably absent from their recent campaigns. 7 months after my departure, an unexpected visitor arrived in my office. My father, looking older and more tired than I remembered, stood awkwardly in our reception area. "Your assistant said you might have a few minutes," he said. The confidence that had once defined him was noticeably diminished. Jessica had warned me he was there, giving me the option to decline the meeting. But curiosity and a small, persistent thread of familial connection had prompted me to agree. "I have exactly 15 minutes before my next call," I said, gesturing him into my office. "What brings you to Denver?" My father looked out of place in my minimalist office, his expensive suit contrasting with the startup simplicity I had deliberately cultivated at Summit Marketing. He took the client chair I offered, glancing around at the space that represented my new independent success. "Your business seems to be doing well," he began, nodding toward the industry award I'd recently received. That sat on my desk. "The article about your elevation marketing approach was impressive." "Thank you," I replied neutrally, "but I assume you didn't fly to Denver to compliment my press coverage."
He sighed, the weight of the past months evident in the new lines
around his eyes. Harper Industries terminated their contract after the initial 3-month trial period. Rachel was quite direct about the reason. The execution didn't match the strategy that had been promised. "Your strategy?" I kept my expression neutral despite the vindication his words brought. "That's unfortunate." "Unfortunate doesn't begin to cover it," he continued. "The $1 million deal you cultivated would have transformed our business. Instead, we lost not only Harper, but 3 other clients who were closely monitoring that relationship." Part of me wanted to remind him that this was precisely the outcome I had warned about, that my value to the company had been greater than they recognized. But the defeat in his posture made such points unnecessarily cruel. "Business relationships are often tied to specific people," I said instead. "That's why succession planning is so critical in service industries." The subtle dig wasn't lost on him. "We made a mistake, Emma, a significant one." His admission hung in the air between us. After months of anger and hurt, hearing him acknowledge their error should have been satisfying. Instead, it felt hollow, coming only after financial consequences had forced the recognition. "Madison is struggling," he continued when I didn't immediately respond. "She has many strengths, but the strategic direction, the vision for where we need to go next, that was always your domain. And now it's my business," I replied, gesturing to the office around us. He nodded slowly. "Your mother and I have been following your success from afar." The Westfield Corporation contract was quite a coup for a new consultancy, so they knew about that too. The Denver business community was smaller than I'd realized. Or perhaps they'd been monitoring my progress more closely than I'd suspected. What exactly are you here for, Dad? I asked directly, conscious of my mentioned 15-minute limit. He straightened in his chair, some of his old business acumen returning. I'm here to propose a collaboration, not a return to Johnson Marketing. He raised his hand as I began to protest. But a strategic partnership between our companies. Your innovation combined with our established client base and resources. The proposal was unexpected. A partnership would require mutual respect and trust, I pointed out. Those were lacking in our previous arrangement. We've learned a painful lesson about your value, he admitted. The company has lost 27% of its revenue since your departure. Madison is considering stepping down as CEO. This news genuinely surprised me. After only 7 months, she recognized that the role didn't align with her strengths. She's excellent with client relations and creative direction. But the comprehensive strategic planning, the innovation pipeline, the business development. She's drowning trying to fill your shoes. A complicated mix of emotions washed over me, vindication, concern for my sister despite everything, and a lingering anger that it took financial decline for my parents to recognize what should have been obvious from the beginning. I appreciate your candor, I said carefully. But Summit Marketing is thriving independently. We're projecting 7-figure revenue in our first year with minimal overhead and no legacy systems to maintain. My father nodded, a hint of pride breaking through his concern. You've proven your capabilities beyond any doubt. That's precisely why a partnership would benefit both companies. You maintain your independence while leveraging our resources and client history. I'll consider it, I conceded, more to end the conversation than from genuine interest. Send me a formal proposal and I'll review it with my team. As he stood to leave, he hesitated. Your mother misses you. We both do, business aside. You're our daughter. The personal appeal caught me off guard. For months, I had compartmentalized my feelings about my family, focusing entirely on building my new life and business. The reminder of our personal connection beyond professional. Disappointments touched a part of me I'd been working to ignore. I need more time, I said honestly. The business decision about partnership is separate from personal reconciliation.
He accepted this with a nod. Fair enough.
The proposal will be on your desk by the end of the week. And Emma, I'm proud of what you've built here. I should have said that more when you were building things for us. After he left, I sat alone in my office, processing the conversation. Jessica knocked gently before entering with a cup of tea, a habit she developed. Whenever she sensed I needed thinking space. How did it go? She asked, placing the tea on my desk. Apparently, Johnson Marketing is struggling without me, I summarized. Madison wants to step down as CEO, and they're proposing a strategic partnership. Jessica raised her eyebrows. Are you considering it? I don't know, I admitted. Professionally, there's little upside for us. We're growing rapidly on our own terms, but personally they're still your family, Jessica finished for me. The following week brought more surprising developments. Summit Marketing secured a meeting with Altara Group, a major competitor to Harper Industries that had been watching our work with Westfield Corporation. Their marketing director, Stephanie, was refreshingly direct during our initial conversation. We've been impressed with your analytics-driven approach, she explained. Our current agency provides beautiful creative, but can't demonstrate ROI with the precision we need. We'd like to discuss a potential $2 million annual contract. $2 million annually, not over 3 years. It would be the largest client in Summit's brief history, pushing us firmly into mid-sized agency territory and requiring immediate staff expansion. The timing coinciding with my father's partnership proposal seemed almost orchestrated by fate. As promised, my father's formal partnership proposal arrived, professionally bound and comprehensive. The terms were surprisingly favorable, acknowledging Summit's independence while offering resource sharing and client referrals. Most telling was the proposed governance structure. Summit would maintain complete autonomy, with optional participation in Johnson Marketing's strategic planning. While I was still considering these parallel opportunities, Madison called. Unlike my father's surprise visit, her approach was direct. "I'm stepping down as CEO," she said without preamble when I answered. "I wanted you to hear it from me before the announcement goes out." "Dad mentioned you were considering it," I replied. "Are you sure this is what you want?" Her laugh held no humor. "What I want." "Emma, I never wanted to be CEO in the first place." This revelation stunned me. "You never wanted the position?" "Not really," she admitted. "I enjoy client relationships and creative direction. The operational side, the constant pressure of strategic decisions. That's always been your strength, not mine." I accepted because Mom and Dad were so convinced it was the right structure. I sat with this new information, recalibrating my understanding of the past year. "Why didn't you say something when I confronted you about it?" "You were so hurt, so angry," she said softly, "and rightfully so. I should have declined, insisted. They reconsider you for the role." I let myself believe their vision that we'd be perfect co-leaders, with me as the figurehead and you as the strategic force. It was naive and unfair to you. The sincere regret in her voice cracked something in my carefully constructed emotional wall. "I'm sorry, it's been difficult," I said, meaning it. "Running a company isn't easy under the best circumstances." "You're thriving at it," she pointed out. "Summit Marketing is becoming an industry name while Johnson is struggling to maintain relevance." "You were always the visionary, Emma. I just wish we had all acknowledged that sooner." As our conversation continued, the bitterness I had nursed for months began to dissolve, replaced by a more nuanced understanding. Madison hadn't plotted to usurp my position. She had been as much a pawn in our parents' flawed succession planning as I had been. "Have you seen Dad's partnership proposal?" she asked eventually. "I have. It's surprisingly equitable." "He spent weeks on it," Madison revealed. "Consulted with attorneys, business advisors, even a family business psychologist. He wanted to get it right because he knows how badly they messed up before." The effort represented a level of recognition I had craved during my years at Johnson Marketing. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had to leave completely before my value was fully acknowledged. The following week brought the culmination of these parallel developments. Summit Marketing signed the Altara Group contract, cementing our position as a rising force in the industry. The same day, Madison's resignation as CEO of Johnson Marketing was announced publicly, with our father temporarily resuming leadership while seeking a new direction for the company. Industry publications noted the coincidental timing, speculating about connections between Johnson's leadership change and Summit's rapid rise. One article directly mentioned the $1 million Harper Industries account that had followed key strategist Emma Johnson to her new venture, an inaccuracy I immediately had Jessica address with the publication, as Harper was not among Summit's clients. The correction was necessary not just for factual accuracy, but because of another development I was cautiously considering: a limited collaboration with Johnson Marketing on a project basis, starting with a joint pitch to a client seeking both the established reputation Johnson offered and the innovative approach Summit had become known for. It wouldn't be the full partnership my father had proposed, but rather a tentative first step toward possible professional reconciliation. The business case was sound. Johnson had historical data and established processes that would complement Summit's agility and innovation. For specific clients with complex needs, our combined strengths could provide unique value. Personal reconciliation was proceeding on a parallel but separate track. I had agreed to dinner with my parents and Madison during their next visit to Denver, not at my apartment or their hotel, but on neutral ground at a restaurant I had come to favor. Small steps toward rebuilding trust, both professionally and personally. As I reviewed the terms of the Altara contract in my expanding office, we had upgraded to a larger space to accommodate our growing team. I reflected on the journey of the past year. The $1 million deal Johnson had lost had been painful for them, but transformative for me, forcing me to create something entirely my own, rather than fitting into a predetermined role in someone else's vision. Jessica interrupted my reflections with news that would add another layer to our evolving story. Rachel from Harper Industries is on line 1. She says they're dissatisfied with their current agency and interested in discussing Summit services. The symmetry was almost too perfect. I picked up the phone, ready to write the next chapter on my own terms. 3 weeks after my conversation with Madison, my phone rang with her name on the caller ID. Our recent communications had been more frequent, but still cautious, rebuilding our relationship, one careful conversation at a time. "Can we meet?" she asked, her voice carrying an urgency that caught my attention. "I'm in Denver for the weekend. There's something I need to discuss with you in person." We arranged to meet at a coffee shop near my apartment the following morning. I arrived early, securing a quiet corner table and ordering my usual Americano. Madison arrived precisely on time, looking simultaneously more relaxed and more mature than when I'd last seen her. The CEO role may have been a poor fit, but the experience had clearly shaped her. "Thanks for meeting me," she began after ordering a latte. "I've been doing a lot of reflecting since stepping down, and I owe you a more complete apology than I've given so far." "You don't need to," I started, but she gently interrupted. "I do, Emma. I accepted a position that should have been yours, that you had earned through years of dedication and results. Whether I wanted it or not doesn't change the fact that I took something that rightfully belonged to you." Her directness surprised me. The Madison I remembered would have softened such statements, wrapped them in qualifiers and explanations. "The worst part," she continued, "is that I knew it wasn't right even as it was happening. I saw how hurt you were at that dinner, and I still went along with it because it was easier than challenging Mom and Dad." I took a sip of my coffee, considering her words. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I want to rebuild our relationship on honesty," she replied. "And because the company is at a crossroads. Dad is talking about selling Johnson Marketing." This was unexpected news. "Selling, that wasn't mentioned in any of our recent discussions." Madison nodded. "It's a new development. After my resignation and several more client departures, he's questioning whether the company can recover its former position without," she hesitated, "without you. There are plenty of capable marketing executives who could revitalize the business," I pointed out. "None with your specific knowledge of our clients and methodology," she countered. "And none who care about the Johnson legacy the way you do, despite everything that happened." She wasn't wrong. Despite my anger and hurt, I had never wished for my parents' life's work to dissolve. The business represented decades of their dedication, creativity, and perseverance, qualities they had instilled in me, even if they had failed to fully recognize them. "What are you suggesting?" I asked, though I suspected I already knew. "Nothing specific yet," Madison said carefully. "Just opening a door to possibilities. Dad mentioned that you've been discussing limited collaboration on specific projects. Perhaps there's a broader conversation to be had about the future of both companies." I considered this as I watched people passing by the coffee shop window, going about their Saturday routines. The past year had transformed me in ways I was still discovering. The wounded, betrayed daughter who had fled Chicago had evolved into a confident business owner, secure in her own capabilities and worth. That security gave me the freedom to consider options that might previously have felt like capitulation. "I'm open to continuing the conversation," I said finally, "but any arrangement would need to acknowledge Summit's independence and success. I won't be absorbed back into Johnson Marketing as if the past year never happened." Madison smiled, relief evident in her expression. "That's more than fair. Your success with Summit has been remarkable, Emma. 2 million in clients in less than a year is extraordinary." Our conversation shifted to lighter topics, her new role in client relations, my expanding office space, mutual friends from Chicago. For brief moments, it felt like the easy companionship we had shared before business complications had come between us. As we prepared to leave, Madison hesitated. "Mom and Dad are struggling with more than just business challenges," she said quietly. "They miss you. The family dinners, the holiday traditions, it's all different without you." I nodded, acknowledging the personal dimension that ran parallel to our professional situation. "I miss aspects of our family too," I admitted, "but trust takes time to rebuild. Would you consider joining us for dinner while I'm in town? Just the 4 of us. No business discussion unless you initiate it." The invitation represented another step in the gradual reconciliation process. Text me the details, I agreed. I'll be there. That dinner proved to be a turning point. Not because of any dramatic revelations or emotional breakthroughs, but because of its surprising normalcy. We gathered at a restaurant I recommended, neutral territory that nonetheless allowed me to demonstrate my growing knowledge of Denver's culinary scene. My parents seemed genuinely interested in my life beyond Summit marketing, my new apartment, the hiking trails I'd discovered, the local business organizations I'd joined. My mother, normally reserved with her emotions, reached for my hand as dessert was served. "We are so proud of what you've built, Emma," she said, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "And so sorry for our role in making it necessary for you to build it alone without your family support." The simple acknowledgement touched me more deeply than I had anticipated. For years, I had sought their recognition of my capabilities and contributions. That it came now after I had proven myself independently carried both sweetness and a lingering hint of sadness for what might have been. "I wasn't entirely alone," I corrected gently. "Jessica joined me from Johnson, and my network of industry contacts has been tremendously supportive." "Nevertheless," my father added, "we failed you as parents and as business mentors. The success you've achieved with Summit is entirely your own, and it's exceptional." These conversations began a new chapter in our family dynamics. The distance, both geographic and emotional, that I had established served us well, allowing interactions on more equal footing rather than within the parent-child, owner-employee hierarchies that had previously defined our relationship. Over the following months, Summit Marketing continued its impressive growth trajectory. We expanded to a full floor in our office building, growing from 2 to 15 employees as our client roster expanded. Rachel and the Harper Industries team did indeed become clients, appreciating the opportunity to work directly with me on their marketing strategy without the family business complications that had previously interfered. Johnson Marketing stabilized under my father's temporary leadership, though it didn't regain the innovative edge that had once differentiated it in the market. After much consideration, my parents decided against selling the company outright. Instead, we developed a more formal collaborative relationship between Summit and Johnson, leveraging complementary strengths for mutual benefit. The arrangement began with a joint pitch to advanced technologies, a client seeking both the established reputation Johnson offered and the innovative approach Summit had pioneered. Our combined proposal won against larger agencies, demonstrating the potential of our collaboration. This success led to more structured conversations about the future. Madison had found her niche in client relations and creative direction areas, where her natural charisma and aesthetic sensibilities shined. My father was ready for true retirement, not just the partial step back they had attempted previously. My mother, always the more administratively inclined partner, had already reduced her involvement to board oversight. After nearly 18 months of independence, I found myself in a position I could never have anticipated on that painful night I resigned. Considering a limited merger between Summit Marketing and Johnson Marketing Consultants, with myself as CEO of the combined entity and Madison as Chief Client Officer. The proposed structure would maintain Summit's brand and innovative methodology while incorporating Johnson's established client base and operational systems. Most importantly, the arrangement acknowledged the distinct value I had created with Summit rather than simply reabsorbing me into the family business. "You've created something remarkable with Summit," my father noted during one of our planning sessions. "This isn't about rescuing Johnson Marketing. It's about combining two successful entities in a way that makes both stronger." The shift in perspective was significant. No longer was I the daughter being given an opportunity in the family business. I was a successful entrepreneur bringing valuable assets and methodologies to a potential merger. The validation I had sought for years had come through the most unexpected path, by walking away and proving my worth independently. The negotiations were detailed and occasionally challenging, with all parties represented by independent counsel to ensure fairness. The resulting agreement maintained Summit's Denver headquarters while keeping Johnson's Chicago office as a satellite location. I would split my time between locations initially, with the goal of eventually consolidating Leadership in Denver. Throughout this process, my personal relationships with my family continued healing in parallel. Regular video calls, occasional visits, and shared business interests rebuilt connections that had been severely damaged. The hurt wasn't erased. Some wounds leave permanent scars, but it was no longer the defining aspect of our relationship. One evening, as I was working late finalizing details of the merger agreement, Jessica brought me tea, as had become her custom. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, settling into the chair across from my desk. Rejoining the family business in any capacity is a big step after everything that happened. I appreciated her candor. She had witnessed my journey from the beginning and had a unique perspective on both my professional growth and personal healing. "It's not rejoining," I clarified. "It's creating something new that incorporates the best of both companies. And importantly, it's on my terms this time," she nodded thoughtfully. "You've changed a lot in the past year and a half." The Emma who left Chicago would never have considered this arrangement. That Emma was still defining herself in relation to her family's approval, I acknowledged. This Emma knows her worth regardless of external validation. This was perhaps the most profound lesson of my journey. True value comes not from titles or others' recognition, but from knowing your own capabilities and having the courage to honor them, even when it means walking away from what seems secure. The merger proceeded smoothly with the new entity, Summit Johnson Marketing, launching with combined revenues exceeding our projections. Industry publications noted the unusual family business story, with several requesting interviews about our innovative approach to succession planning. We declined most, preferring to let our results speak for themselves. My relationship with Madison evolved into a true partnership, our complementary strengths creating a leadership dynamic that neither of us could have achieved alone. The sibling rivalry that had once defined us, fueled by our parents' flawed approach to succession, transformed into mutual respect and appreciation. My parents transitioned to advisory board roles, providing institutional knowledge while respecting the new direction Madison and I established. The distance created by my departure had, paradoxically, brought us closer, allowing adult relationships to replace the parent-child dynamics that had complicated our business interactions. Looking back on the tumultuous journey from overlooked daughter to independent entrepreneur to CEO on my own terms, I recognize how necessary each painful step was to my growth. Had I been named CEO of Johnson Marketing, as I had expected, I might never have discovered my full capabilities or developed the confidence that comes only from building something entirely your own. Walking away from the family business was the hardest decision I'd ever made, but it forced both me and my family to recognize my true value, not as an extension of their legacy, but as a capable leader in my own right. The $1 million deal they lost without me became the catalyst for a transformation that ultimately benefited us all. If you're facing a similar crossroads, feeling undervalued despite your contributions, questioning whether to stay in a situation that doesn't recognize your worth, remember that sometimes walking away is the strongest statement you can make. Know your value even when others don't see it yet. The path may be harder initially, but the destination can exceed anything you would have achieved by accepting less than you deserve. Have you ever had to walk away from something important to find your true worth? Share your story in the comments below. And if this journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need this reminder of their own value. Sometimes the greatest successes come only after we have the courage to close doors that were never truly open to us. Thank you for listening, and remember, your worth isn't determined by others' recognition of it.